Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining me. And we're going to be talking about a problem that a lot of people ask me about, and it's the process of fermentation is a very intricate thing, and it's ongoing. And what can happen a lot of times is if people aren't aware of it, as the microbes in kefir and kombucha and other fermented foods eat the sugars, whether it be in kefir, it's lactose. In cultured vegetables, it's the vegetables and the fruits that are in cultured vegetables. And also in kombucha, it's eating the sugar out of the tea. It becomes very sour if you let it go too long and get over fermented. So, and many people aren't aware that the sugar in these foods are not for you. They're for the microbes. They're going to eat all this sugar, but they're going to keep making it more and more tart and sour tasting if it ferments for a long time. And so this can happen if your house is warmer, if you're, ferment faster. And it's happened to me time and time. My kefir, for instance, will get really, really sour because either I have too many grains for the amount of milk I'm using, or my house is warmer. And, I let it go too long. Usually it's only 24 hours on my counter, but if it's warm outside, it can take less than that. And kefir will also ferment more quickly if your grains have grown and multiplied and you didn't increase the milk or remove some of the grains. It's going to ferment a lot faster. And it can separate into whey and curds, which isn't bad. There's nutrients and microbes in both the whey and the curds. And if you leave your finished kefir in the fridge for a long time and don't drink it, it slowly ferments in the refrigerator, so it can separate into whey and curds and get more sour and tart over time. And it slows way down in the fridge because the cooling effect of the fridge slows the fermentation way, way, way down. But it still can if you leave it in there, and it can stay perfectly preserved in your refrigerator for many, many months. I've had both kefir and kombucha at 9 months, both of them. They're tart, but they're still good because the good bacteria preserves the food and keeps out the pathogens. But the longer that it's in there, the more the bacteria will eat the sugars out of either the milk or the kombucha tea and make it very tart tasting. Now with kefir, one of the things you can do is to second ferment your kefir. This always helps with the really sour tart taste, and it tastes so much better. A lot of people will only eat kefir if it's second fermented because it tastes so good. And whenever you make your kefir, we do something called second fermenting, and you add something to your kefir. So let's say you've made a jar of kefir, and your kefir's done, you've taken out the grains. If you add just like a 6 inch or a 3 inch piece of fruit peel, like lemon, orange, both of those are really good, or even just like a strawberry, a couple blueberries, this way, and throw it in the jar. This is when the grains are out of it. If you let it in there for like anywhere from an hour to a couple hours on the counter, what happens is it starts to give the bacteria in the kefir more food to eat. So it starts to ferment again, but it takes away some of the sourness because you've added something to it to give it a sweetness. And the bacteria turns it into more probiotics than it was before, takes away a lot of the sour tartness, and also enhances the vitamins and minerals in it. The B vitamins really go up when you do this, especially folate and also vitamin C, because you've added something for the bacteria to eat. Another thing you can do is you can give your kefir a prebiotic like Prebio Plus or inulin or even a little bit of potato starch, just like a pinch. And prebiotics are food for bacteria, and they'll give your kefir again something to eat, which will help make your kefir less sour, less tart, and more creamy. And a little pinch or a little spoonful, say you have a quart jar, you could add anywhere from a pinch to like a scoop that's in the prebio jar, which is like, I think, a half a teaspoon. And, you can shake it up or stir it up, or sometimes I don't even do that. I just put it in the jar and it still ferments it out. And in the morning, it will like be less, you could put it this bright in the fridge. You don't even have to let it sit on your counter. And in the morning, it will taste less sour, less tart, and be more creamy. So instead of just making a regular recipe with large amounts of kefir, split it up. For instance, instead of using a cup of kefir in your smoothie. Like if it's super sour and super tart, only use a half a cup and then use like another half a cup of milk or almond milk or coconut milk. Split it up. You could even put like, I have a kefir cottage cheese recipe that I love that's in my book. And I'll put that in there to make it thick. But instead of using the whole cup of kefir in the smoothie, I only use a half a cup and then replace the other half with some kind of either non-dairy milk or regular milk or cottage cheese. And it really makes it taste so much better. You can also add some more milk to your super sour kefir and let it ferment again for about 4 hours to 6 hours on your counter. And this will help lessen the sharp twang because, again, you're giving it food. You don't need to add the grains. You can just put it on there because your kefir is so strong, it will have a lot of microbes in it because the sour taste means, the microbes are starting to die off because they're running out of food. So they'll be hungry. And so that will ferment really, really fast. Now, another thing you can do with your super sour kefir is to make it into fruit smoothies. The fruit really, really helps with the sourness, especially like frozen bananas, strawberries, mangoes. Bananas seem to cut down a lot on the sourness of kefir. They really help. Another thing that significantly helps is adding a little vanilla or even lemon extract to your smoothie, which I have recipes for how to make your own vanilla, which is like 2 ingredients, super easy and super fun to make. You can also add things like collagen powder that is vanilla flavored or chocolate or even whey protein, things like that have a vanilla. I like to get the ones that don't have sugar in them that have like monk fruit or allulose or stevia. They really take away a lot of the sourness in your smoothies. I love to add things like when it's really sour, one of the things that I add a lot are the simple red powders with blueberries and bananas. And simple reds is red phenol powders that help take away some of the tartness too, and also give you a lot of things that are good to feed your gut bacteria like Akkermansia. And it helps to feed that, but also helps to feed the kefir and makes it taste less tart and sour. So I do this all the time. If my kefir's too sour, I'll sometimes even make it into cheese and use it, strain out the whey, put the kefir, I'll put a coffee filter in a strainer over a bowl, pour the kefir in it, put a little plastic wrap on the top, stick it in the fridge and let the whey drain out and turn it into kefir cheese, which is delicious. And I have like 43 recipes on what to do with kefir cheese because I make so much kefir cheese. So that's another really fun, easy way to do it. One of my favorite smoothies is a green kefir smoothie that I make when my kefir is really sour and tart. And I will link that recipe in the description below. It's one of my favorites when my kefir is too sour, and this really cuts that strong flavor if you don't want to do all the things above. Now, let's talk about kombucha, because kombucha can get really, really tart. And it's important to understand what happens when this happens. So in the early days of making kombucha, I would often let my kombucha go too long. And if you let it go too long, it loses its bubbliness because some of the good yeast that create the bubbles die off. And there were several times, many times when it got too sour that it made me squint to drink it. And it had basically what had happened was it had turned to vinegar. And that's what kombucha does when it gets overly sour. It makes a great vinegar that will last forever in your cupboard. And so if it gets too sour, you can save it and bottle it just like kombucha vinegar. And I have recipes for that just so you know what exactly you're doing. Just make sure that it doesn't have any bubbles in it, because I have bubbled a couple that still were bubbly and they almost exploded in my cabinet. They didn't, but they could. So you got to make sure it's not bubbly, or just check it because you'll be able to tell if there's pressure in the jar when you open it. So the fizziness in kombucha is made by the helpful yeasts that are in kombucha. There's Saccharomyces boulardii. There's other yeast in there that are good yeasts that make the kombucha bubbly. And these little yeast will eat the sugar out of the kombucha, and that's what creates that natural fizz and probiotics. And when the sugar is completely consumed, the yeast start to die off, and then the kombucha starts to get flat and turn to vinegar, and it loses its bubbles. And at this point, many of the probiotics are diminished because there's still some in there, but it's more of a vinegar-based type thing. And it's one of the reasons why you shouldn't let your kombucha over ferment. because then you'll lose all your fizz and all your bubbliness if that's what you're wanting. The health benefits there's still some health benefits there, but it doesn't have that naturally occurring carbonation. So, and there's lots of good bacteria and good yeast in kombucha. And when they start to ferment your tea, they consume the sugars in the tea and create ethanol or carbon dioxide, which is naturally occurring carbonation. Now, that's different than sodas on the market. That's forced carbonation. This is naturally occurring carbonation made by good bacteria and yeast. And the good bacteria consumes the ethanol and creates new compounds and amino acids that give your body the boost it needs. It can help your joints, assist your liver in detoxification, along with a host of other things. And this is interesting because I literally just got a Lives Touch submission. Somebody sent it in yesterday. And it's such a good story. Let me read it to you. Now, this is on my Lives Touch page, and I will link this in the description below because it's a really sweet story. And then you can see a picture of her and her husband. And her name is Susie. And she wrote me and sent in a picture yesterday and said, I just recently listened to your latest podcast on kombucha, and I just had to share my husband's story. In 2012, Moses, my husband, was diagnosed with liver cirrhosis. He had never drank alcohol in his life. By 2016, we referred to a specialist, thinking we could get help and answers at the appointment. We only heard the doctor say there's really nothing we can do and it will only get worse. The specialist prescribed a medication and told us we look into further exams in UCLA, and her diagnosis was it is possibly lupus. Moses and I were devastated, feeling very helpless. And as we left the doctor's office, Moses said to me, I don't want to start that medication and I don't want to go to UCLA. And we both cried the whole way home. At that time, I was just beginning to learn about cultured and fermented foods after searching for many ways to help myself through my breast cancer journey. And without even thinking about looking up the health benefits for the liver, I told Moses that if he was refusing any type of treatment, then the only thing we needed to do was first trust God for more faith and pray for complete healing. And second, we should up the amount of fermented foods I was learning how to make. Kombucha being one of them, we love the tea and we both started drinking it by the gallons. We learned that a healthy person with a healthy liver, the marker levels the doctor checked should be between 70 and 75, and Moses' marker levels were over 300. Fast forward exactly 6 months after the lupus diagnosis and deterioration of his liver being the prognosis, Moses had a clean bill of health, and his levels went from 300 to 75, which was normal. For this reason, we thank God every day for healing and wellness and the knowledge of these amazing foods. Cultured and fermented foods will always be a part of our daily meals, and we are never going back. Thank you, Donna. You have been a blessing to me and my family. And that is one of the many reasons that I just love kombucha. So many wonderful things, especially is so helpful for the liver and helps it, assists it in detoxification. It's powerful. It's a powerful drink, but it also tastes so good. And as I said before, I think I said this, that it helps your joints. There's so many compounds and amino acids in it, and it just gives your body a boost of what it needs. And along with liver detoxification, I have many articles about kombucha. I've got 7 reasons I drink kombucha, and it is one of the things that I believe is assisting me in staying so well. It's helped us a lot in our family with many other things. And I think it's powerful. It does. I remember years ago, I did an article and a podcast about my husband. And he was, this was how many years ago? 20 years ago? And we had just started making and drinking kombucha, and he got diagnosed with a cataract. And it was the fast-growing kind, and he needed surgery right away. And the other one had it too, and he said within 2 months, you'd need it on that one. So he started drinking kombucha mostly. He was doing a little bit of kefir too, but mostly kombucha because he really liked it. And by the time he kept going to the doctor, the doctor said, it's just, I've never seen that before. It just stopped growing. Why did it do that? And he swears. Now, I've seen some research about how it does help different parts of the body, different things, different compounds. But I wasn't aware that it helped the eyes. And he swears that was what did it for him. But it was really interesting because last week, these are all anecdotal things, but these are these are just experiences that happened to me and my family, and to, other people share with me on my Lives Touch page all the things that have happened to them. But just last week, I need new glasses, so I went in because I have glasses for distance because I can't see far away. And he went in and he was checking my eyes, and I haven't been in to have my eyes checked in probably 4 or 5 years. So he went in, he goes, wow, he goes, you're like in the 1%. You don't have any problem with close-up vision. You have 20/20 vision. You have problems with distance, which I've had since I was 16. He goes, but usually at the age of 40, everybody, and across the board, everybody starts to need reading glasses because they start to lose their close-up distance. And he goes, and you haven't. And he goes, you just got really good genes. And I told my daughter that. She goes, no, it's all the stuff you take. I really see perfectly close up, which is unusual for somebody who's 62. So, and these are just my experiences. I'm not claiming that it does that. I think it's a combination of all the cultured foods I eat, the way that I take care of my gut bacteria, probably some genetics too, maybe. Although my parents both needed reading glasses, but I don't know for sure what it is, but I'm going to keep doing it because I know it's helped Ron, and now I know it's helped me. And I would love to go through my life and not need reading glasses. And so far, my vision's perfect. So that's just a little side note for me. No research yet to back it up, but I'll take it because I like being able to see up close. So, one of the things about kombucha that people freak out about is they think that it has a lot of alcohol because there's a lot of, there were some that they second ferment with like grape juice and some other ones. And what happened was there's such a small amount of alcohol from the fruit juices. It's like there's some in orange juice too, and in yogurts, there's just tiny bits that fermentation makes. And the current testing that they use to test for it often confuses organic acids and naturally occurring sedimentation for ethanol. And when they tested for this, the increases of the alcohol content to a higher percentage than is actually in the product because they let the kombucha sit on the counter and spoil. Not really necessarily spoil, but they left them out of the refrigeration before they tested them. And so all this naturally occurring sedimentation at the bottom actually was confused when it was just really the part of the organic compounds in kombucha. I've had so many people tell me they took breathalyzers, they've tested it. On my forum, one guy said he drank 2 gallons of kombucha, which I don't recommend because he was in the bathroom a lot because it did detoxify him. But he said, I didn't register any alcohol in my breath on my breathalyzer. And I've had that people tell me that a lot. So it's really a fantastic drink. I just highly recommend you at least try it from the store. The best brand to get is GT Synergy because he doesn't pasteurize his at all. And he's very pure about what he does. And a lot of the ones now are being pasteurized slightly so they won't explode on store shelves. GT's got it down. He knows how to do it. So that's the one I recommend. But here's the deal with kombucha. Don't let it get overly sour. Bottle your kombucha tea when it's still tiny, tiny bit sweet. It will continue to ferment in your fridge when you do. And if it does turn sour, that means the yeast and bacteria have run out of the food. And your kombucha will go flat if you don't bottle it and put it in the fridge right away. So if you're wanting really fizzy kombucha, then you need to make sure that it has a tiny bit of sweetness when you add the fruit juice to it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link description below on how to second ferment your kombucha so that you'll know that when you first make your batch of kombucha, it's just plain kombucha. It's just tea and sugar. You wait till it's a tiny bit sweet, and then you add it to a bottle, and you add 2 ounces of fruit juice, and then you let it ferment again for 3 to 7 days on your counter, just testing it often. And then it gets super bubbly because it eats the sugars out of the fruit juice and makes it super bubbly and flavors it. So, but you want to do it before your kombucha goes flat or starts to turn super sour. The other thing that is really good to do with extra sour kombucha is to use it for a starter for more kombucha. If you want to make your kombucha really quickly, if your starter is really, really sour, almost turning to vinegar, it will make kombucha really fast. So don't throw it out because there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. I have 10 ways of things you can do with over-fermented kombucha. and it tastes really good. There's all different kinds. I've got marinades, and I've got starters, and I've got even household sprays to clean stuff with, and vinegars and things you can do if your kombucha turns too sour. So if you're not familiar with kombucha, it's a fermented tea. It's really worth knowing about because it's kind of taken the world by storm. And honestly, guys, I can't wait to have a glass every day. It's such a boost for me, especially in the afternoon. We should call it afternoon slump kombucha because it's the perfect thing for the afternoon. If you kind of need a pickup, you're a little bit hungry, but you don't want to eat something before dinner, but you kind of need something. It's terrific. It's better than coffee for you, to be sure, because it doesn't have the crash of the caffeine. And a lot of the caffeine, there's still caffeine in kombucha if you use regular tea, but a lot of it has been reduced. They say between 20 and 30% of caffeine less than it would be if you didn't make kombucha with the tea. So there's just so many benefits. I love it. And I love kefir too. They are life-changing things that I've been having for 20 years and I have them for good reason. And besides, I really like them. They're delicious. And honestly, okay, today it's almost noon and I've had both of them already, which is pretty normal. Usually I'll try to have kombucha in the afternoon, but this morning I wanted it. So I had some this morning. And if you guys, here's something too. If ever you kind of feel sluggish or you don't feel well from the day before, or you're having a hard time getting going, or even if you have a headache, kombucha is a wonderful pickup to have. It just kind of gives you some B vitamins that really help your immune system, but also help give you a boost. It kind of, floods your body with all these special good bacteria, and we need good yeast too. And it really helps you to just balance things out in your body. There's special probiotic yeast in it, Saccharomyces boulardii, which is just so, so, so powerful. And it kills candida, actually. And it's very strong. It doesn't last in the body very long, but it's very, very well researched, this good yeast. And it's a probiotic yeast. It's not a bacterium, but it's really powerful, has a lot of uses. They have a pill form of it that they use in hospitals for people who have things like acute diarrhea or antibiotic-associated diarrhea. This, because it's a good yeast, antibiotics won't kill it, and it really helps bring balance, especially to the colon area, to people who have chronic diarrhea or gastrointestinal problems. So it's a very powerful drink. And you can get it just about anywhere now, which is thrilling to me because it wasn't like that many years ago. So anyway, it's fun to make it. It's more powerful if you make it, but you could buy it too. Make sure you get the GT's version. Synergy, he's got a million different flavors, and they're all so, so good. My new favorite one right now is the peach one. I got that the other day. Goodness gracious, that was so good. So give it a try. And if your kombucha gets overly sour or your kefir gets overly sour, check out these articles, and it'll give you a reminder of what to do. And I will link the description below. And thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.